Up the Town of Barre Finance Committee meeting. First up on the agenda is the approval of minutes from January 28th, 2025. It's not on the agenda, but
We can start with the 17th.
can we put this at 17th? It's not on the agenda. Can we review the 17th minutes?
I think somebody wrote that we had to do it the following week.
Yeah, I think Sandra said it was going to be on the meeting agenda for the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I was gonna say, because if it's not on the agenda, no,
Yeah.
we couldn't do it.
We'll have to look at the 17th next meeting.
I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes from January 28th.
There's a motion to accept minutes from January 28th.
A second.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Do we need to sign them?
Only Zach needs to sign the
Okay.
minutes. All right, on to new business. And we're moving on to the review of proposed FY '26 budgets. First up, we have the accountant, which I do not believe is attending, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So the accountant is looking for a 2.5% increase over prior year for both her position as well as the assistant town accounting position. And is that the COLA increase, do we know, or is that looking for?
That would be the COLA increase.
So that'll be the COLA increase. Okay. I think traditionally we look at, we put cap COLA on at the end. So this would be a level funded budget.
Yes.
So the request for level funded, is there a step increase here as well, or for the positions, or is that
No step increase.
no step increase? So prior to COLA, that would be match FY '25 774 510 for the town accountant position, 12,230 for the assistant town accountant. And then there's a 2.5% increase on supplies and other. Any questions we want to document for?
Well, I thought the agreement was we're gonna have the people attend that were responsible for the budget so that we could ask them any future problems or questions or, so unfortunately we can't do that.
Not
If
with.
I have a question.
If I have a question, that's correct. And prior to my arrival, I just want to document here, we did receive an email from our colleague, Finance Committee member, Mr. Corey Bombretti, asking to submit to the meeting minutes some questions since he could be not in attendance. We will enter those questions into the meeting minutes as well as my response to Mr. Bombretti. Also documenting that we cannot or should not, as a best practice, as Finance Committee members, include all members on an email. Because we have a risk of having a quorum discussion and violating open meeting laws.
Can't do it.
So and we'll let Mr. Bombretti know that, but just to document it here, in a case of someone wants to add something to an agenda, that's part of the, send it up to the chair, vice chair, copy the town administrator, and we can go from there. But we don't wanna be risking any open meeting violations via email. All right. Town accountant, not here. Treasurer collector is gonna postpone, correct?
Yes.
Jake had a conflict, so he'll show, they'll be at our next meeting.
Yes.
Veterans agent.
Hey, Joe.
Oh, great. Yeah, you wanna come join us? So you took over for, Tony?
Yes,
Oh, excellent.
the hot seat.
Do you need one, Dan?
I have one, I just gotta find it. There it is.
You have extras?
All right, so veterans agent, looks like an increase of 2.5% on the salary. Is that a COLA increase? And a 30% increase on the veterans expense. Could you fill us in as how that relates?
Sure, so one of the items is the flags went up considerably that we do for Memorial Day. And also, the previous VSO didn't attend the trainings. There's 2 trainings that are mandated every year. And so there were expenses, those are training expenses that were added into that.
Okay. And what do those trainings include?
So you have to be certified, accredited as a VSO.
Okay.
So these are state trainings that you have to attend, and basically it's just about your job. You go through 4 days of PowerPoint by death. Death by PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Death by PowerPoint. Death by PowerPoint.
Sounds like fun. That sounds like
Yeah.
my
It's so much fun. Rules and regulations all day long.
Excellent, excellent. And the other expenses that are already being incurred or close to being expended, what do those include?
I'm sorry.
Like on the expense line, like so in 24, like $4,000 were expended out of 5,000. Like what were those? Were those
So-
related to trainings and flags as
So
well?
we had the electricity for the office.
Okay.
Training, membership, you have to be a member of the MVOC, was flags, and then office supplies,
Okay.
mileage.
And the veterans benefits are level funded?
Yes.
And what do those include?
So that is the Chapter 115. That's what the checks that we give to veterans that are in need.
And how many veterans does the town have?
We have 5
Right.
at the moment. And you do receive 75% reimbursement on that.
Yeah, so that
From the
comes,
state.
yeah, that comes back on a different line, right?
Yes. Yep.
Is that on the cherry sheet or is that on something?
You can see it on the cherry
On the
sheet.
cherry sheet.
Yes. And the treasurer would end up getting that.
Any other questions from the committee?
I didn't catch your name.
Betty Jo.
Betty
Betty Jo O'Brien.
Nice to meet you, Betty Jo.
Thank you. And I don't know any of your names.
Oh, my name's Leanne.
Leanne.
Mhm.
I'm Dan Jewell.
Ginger,
Brian Inman.
Eric Piker.
Zach Mackwitz.
Very nice to meet you all.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
doing this
Yeah.
and, supporting the veterans of the town. I mean, it's an important cause, that's for sure.
It definitely is.
And if there's no other questions, no? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
it's a little bit less painful than PowerPoint, right?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It looks like we're on to Conservation Committee. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, very well, thanks.
Good.
Conservation Committee, huh? How is that committee doing today?
Ooh, we're doing good. Everyone's in line.
Oh, nice, nice.
Oh, I'm bad. Planning board also.
So pretty much level funded, right?
Yep, and I did the second page, you said to add the COLA, so take a little money off. So, as you said, I took some money off, like expense lines and stuff, to help with that, because you said to do 2 budgets, so that's what I did.
Okay, yep.
Um,
So FY '24, your department's at $1,000 with $455 expended, right?
Yeah.
And-
Was that for planning board you looking at? Or you looking at conservation?
Conservation Commission.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then that budget moved up to $2,000 for FY '25.
Yeah, they were because, we have members who wanna go to the MACC classes.
Okay.
And we don't have a lot of funding, so they weren't going for a while, so that's why you increased it last year. But we took a little bit out of our expense, you know, for the COLA, so I did 2 budgets for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that's
so-
why it was increased last year, is to send the members,
Yep.
so they can get some training.
And what do those classes, like, what does that involve?
They go to Holy Cross for a whole day.
Mhm.
It's about $80 a person. I think it might be up to $100 now a person. And they go in the morning, have coffee, have their first classes. They have lunch there, and then their second group of classes start in the afternoon. So it's a whole day function for them. And it's in March.
It's in March, okay.
Yeah, so it's coming up shortly.
And that's kind of like a required thing for, like, to be part of the Conservation Committee?
It's not really a requirement, they just like them to refresh their skills.
Yeah.
So some years 2 will go, next year maybe 2 more will go, depending on how,
Okay.
you know, we leave it up to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first budget, budget number 1 then, that's the level funded budget.
Right, and then
But-
the other one has some money taken off.
Oh, so we're gonna go with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should have told you that, budget.
Well, that's the budget number 2, so.
Okay.
we'll go- No, I'm just kidding with you. But the budget number 2 would still be in line
Yes,
with the
we could still
expenses.
afford to do all that with them. Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. That works. All right, any other questions for, that one's pretty easy, Conservation.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, this is, I mean, it is, you know, it is really helpful for your representing, for everyone representing being here, because, you know, it's very likely gonna be a challenging budget year.
We
And to
understand
have
that.
answers to these questions, you know, for the voters of the town is important. So we're on, are you also representing the planning board?
Yes, so I gave you 2 budgets again, because I did the COLA on the other one, so,
Nice.
like it said in the letter.
Right.
It said to put the COLA in and do it 2 ways, and that's what I did.
And that's great, because you read the letter, so.
And I signed it too.
So if I'm reading this correct, right, the planning board consultant,
Yes,
well, so we, that's $1,000, right?
Yeah.
There was nothing expended in '24. Has there been anything expended, do you know, year-to-date today?
no, so that's if we were to bring up someone like, what's that guy from that rural plant? Yeah, Jeff Lacy, so if we had to pay him, but we haven't had to use him lately.
Okay,
And we had some attorney fees, but it seems to be covered with your attorney budget.
yep,
So that's how that works, and so that's what that's there for.
okay.
But,
I would just say
yeah.
from the planning board's perspective, I know that we had talked about a couple bylaw things that could support the town in various ways.
Mhm.
One was the historic overlay district process,
Mm-hmm,
and that starts with the select board, but that would probably include some type of support like this from some account.
Yep.
Because the planning board doesn't get involved until the middle. There's a lot of select board activity to get that process started. And the other was the Community Preservation Act. And I thought simply it benefits the planning board to some degree, but it's primarily a benefit to the budget. It is an additional tax, but you can really determine that true based on a percent, and what I had requested is find out is if we could just do a flat fee, so it's $20 a person a year. It's not gonna grow with your property tax, it's just, we would go back and vote a new way to raise it to whatever, whenever that time comes. But to learn that process, because that's also like a 1.5-year process.
Yeah.
And so, I know that from the planning board's perspective, some of those benefits are the open space that we like to try to support, that has its own kind of committee still? Or they were thinking about appointing a committee to manage the plan that got approved. But until then, it's technically more like a chapter in a master plan, which would fall under the planning board to some degree as well as the select board, and saying, are we following the guidance of the town? So what the CPA does is you get money in, and then when you go to spend it, you can apply with the state and get dollar for dollar match. So you're doubling the money that goes in when you go to use it. But there's 3 categories you gotta do: low income, historical, and open space. And I believe you have to leave a minimum or spend a minimum of 10% of it in each category. Some rule like that. So I don't wanna say I know the whole thing, but the general concept. The reason I'm suggesting that is we already know this year's gonna be a questionable year to talk to people about taxes. But since this is a 1.5-year long process, the next time it comes up, and it may still be worth asking, you might still have the selling point of the matching dollar for dollar, which no other tax you can propose right now would give you that.
Yeah.
And you can give it potentially that fixed fee, but I think we still need a legal counsel to prove you could do a fixed fee versus a percent.
Yeah. My understanding, like, I don't know that. I know there's like up to the 3%. You could do a 0.5%, up to 3%. It's a surcharge on the current tax rate. So it's kind of like that consumables tax you're looking to add. It's a percentage of a percentage, right? And then the state would match up to the 3% as well, depending on whatever the town provided.
Okay, yeah, so very similar.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if it had to be a percent, or if you could create something where people feel comfortable, I can afford, so I'm not gonna say no.
Miss Allen.
Where if you
may
say
not.
like a percent of a percent, they may still say that's $100.
There,
I don't know.
there is a minimum percent, I think it can't be lower than 1%. However, what you can do, I don't believe a flat fee is possible, you can exempt certain categories of taxpayers, I believe, such as low income and the elderly. You can also, I believe,
Like a baby.
exempt the first X $1,000 of valuation from the tax. So there are ways to make it more palatable to taxpayers.
So yeah, that's the.
I'm not an expert, but I was just reading
Yeah.
it, so those are some of the provisions. Also, some of it can be put in as an appropriation from the town rather than from the tax, but it has to come up to a certain amount. So there are exemptions that you can make for the taxpayers in certain categories.
So the reason I bring that up is I wasn't sure where the finance committee would say, should funding go into a certain category, whether it's the planning board or someone else, to take steps, even if it supports another board to finish.
Yep.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just I know they're buried with stuff.
Oh, no,
But
absolutely.
we all agree, moving through that, yeah, give me the limited number. We start talking to legal counsel under that number for that purpose. And then we can be the mediator with the town administrator, just, so she's not always chasing and doing that when she's got so many things. So it's just something to consider.
Yeah.
Just figured I'd put it out there.
No, absolutely, and I mean, it is a conversation the town should have. Other towns are doing, I believe Hubbardston implemented it a few years back, and they've upgraded some of their buildings. Cause there's 3 segments too, it's historical preservation, I think it's like low income, and then there's a third aspect of.
Open space.
Oh, is it open space? So there's 3 different aspects that those funds can funnel towards, I
And
can't.
within them, there's only certain activities you
Yeah,
can do.
so it is specific, but
But
there,
it might help our fire escapes.
it could help with fire escapes, like wheelchair access to, old buildings, right?
That's my theory. We
ADA.
own enough old buildings, it may actually really help in the long run. And
Just-
again, if you're talking $10 a person, and you got 3,000 bills coming in, you just put 30,000 in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's true.
That can be matched, so now you got 60,000 to work through
Nobody
the
would
3
care
different
about
criteria.
$10.
And if you let it
I
build up
wouldn't
for a few years, now all of a sudden you can take some of those bigger
Yeah.
hits when you need it.
And
It
the
grows
met-
much faster than you would expect, based on how fast we can act with it.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, but.
Well, the
it takes
match
us
for
a
the
while
state-
To get to a certain level of
yeah,
accomplishment.
and the state match is the key part of that too, is like, you're getting, free, air quotations there, funds from the state.
The state has the money anyway, they're just giving it to other towns.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
No, excellent, that makes sense.
If you were here.
I'm just crazy.
Yeah.
And that's part of those planning board expenses.
It was
Yeah.
just a thought, how, and that's a little also with Tammy working, so I'm not trying to say do it, but I think it's something to consider.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions for planning board? No?
Good.
How about on, our last meeting, we talked a lot about this reservoir. Is that part of the, maybe I shouldn't bring it
The
up.
dam?
Oh, please.
Is that part of
Please.
the
Please don't.
conservation?
We don't,
Conservation
we
and
don't have
planning?
any stake in that, right?
So that-
With planning or conservation.
Okay.
The conservation may have a role whenever it gets to actual permitting and
Right.
construction role. Planning boards, again, the closest thing the planning board could do is if somebody asked us, and they would have to ask, I'm not jumping,
Yeah.
whether we have anything when it comes to that open space plan, and does this contribute towards or not towards one of those goals? And that would be really just speaking to what the plan says, not what we think about the plan. The plan talks about this, and maybe it's just all bike trails this year, I don't know.
Yep.
Well, then we're not talking about open waters, so we would just I would, as a member, just kind of recommend it doesn't apply. But it would really, I don't know the plan well enough, that was an example that may not be accurate.
So now it's all in the bailiwick of the select board.
Yeah.
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 We did have 2 meetings, conservation and planning, just to let them come in, talk with them.
Have a
If they had
voice.
any question, they try to help them, but they don't have any jurisdiction, either board, unless they're gonna be filing with the state and DEP, then conservation will have a little say. Other than that, nothing. So it's all up to you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a question, Corey, you wanted me to ask. It's a little bit out of our purview, but he just wanted to know about the recording of meetings. Is that
Yep.
happen at the planning board and the
No,
conservation?
so, we did say like we could get a recorder that we could do in the office, but we don't have funding in our budget for that. And we could.
We were kind of.
I was gonna say, I think, at
Oh.
one of our select board meetings, and I believe they voted.
To do
I don't know
that?
if you
To do it.
Do you remember that?
Oh.
To get you guys, everyone.
They voted, like, the hour that they used
Yes.
in
Yeah.
DPW.
So you can go ahead and
That's
get one.
my pack.
So we don't
Okay, 'cause I
have,
couldn't recall, we talked about possibly having new cameras installed. and-
I am gonna be doing that, that is on my
Okay,
list.
so we didn't know if that was what
It-
we're waiting on, because of the
yeah, we weren't
procedure on
sure.
how we would take that.
Yeah,
video and
yeah.
get it to them.
I just got the
We
buildings
don't
names.
know right
so-
now, I know
Yeah.
DPW's
Yeah.
figured something out, but we were just kind of waiting until we were told it's ready to do.
Yeah,
I would go ahead
Just
and
to
get
be,
the owl,
we
though.
were just trying
What,
to
huh?
wait to
Go
see
ahead and
when it
get
was
the
ready.
owl, because we're still in the process of.
I figured you would
Oh.
know that anyways, right?
Yeah, and It's something that comes up, but it's also something I'm trying to be patient with, I understand.
It's not a quick process sometimes.
And the reason why we like it in the office is because when people leave at conservation, they leave with their documents.
Yeah.
Already signed process and they're all ready for DEP. If I have to come down here and going up and down, that's how mistakes happen, and there's just no way that's gonna happen.
Mhm.
The same thing with planning board, they leave with their special permit decision that night.
Yeah, that makes
And that's
sense.
why, the office works for us.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do what's best
Yeah.
for the people who are showing up, right?
Right, I mean, we try not to, they'll say, some towns will be, come back in 2 weeks, we don't try not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're done and you're okay, you get your stuff and you can leave.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So,
Makes sense to me at least.
yeah.
What do I know?
Well, you're in charge right now.
We'll see. Let's see. Are you also zoning board of appeals?
Yes.
Wow, look at this.
So everything's
Look at this.
wrapped up into one little budget there.
All right.
And we took off our expense account for zoning, because, planning board, we can support them with no problem. That's on budget too.
Hey, this cycle, I think every little bit helps.
So,
We're planning for some, unfortunately, we're gonna get some, larger expenses that the town's gonna be
Yeah.
incurring from, regional dispatch, I think. There's gonna be
Yeah.
healthcare increases,
Yeah.
and like trying to get it all in is gonna be tough. So
even
every-
with our 3 boards, our budget's not really that big
Yeah,
for what we can do up there.
excellent.
And have a good group of volunteers.
And so, what does the land use admin secretary do? Is that you?
Yeah, and that would cover all of them.
Okay, so that
Yeah.
covers everything?
Everything, that's not just, that's for all the boards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Agendas, minutes, all
everything,
the
yeah,
stuff.
for all 3.
All the paperwork that supports every application for every one of those
Yeah.
boards.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So you do all the minutes and everything and stuff too?
Oh, yeah, and all the documents that need to be sent out.
We need to get one of that. You get you added onto our budget over here.
I can't take any more minutes. Ask Sandy. Right, no more minutes. Sandy.
Zach's getting excited over there.
So,
Good.
So budget 2 is not, we didn't fix the budget 2.
oh, you didn't fix the budget too?
No, so budget 1, which did you take out on budget 2?
Yeah, budget 1 has a different, that has a
Yeah, I think
larger
kinda happened
increase.
today, that's why.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Or budget 2, so is there a reason for that on the budget 1, the 20%
Yeah.
increase?
I don't know how to change that.
Now I'll have to change it. So what was the difference between budget 1 and budget 2 So originally, the numbers, I just got this today, looking at it.
Yeah,
and
we had a little
So we-
glitch thing, so we're just trying to figure it out. Yeah,
So I didn't even see
don't know.
budget 2.
You can just, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, just,
Um,
it's basically gonna be the same numbers, because you didn't have the,
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay. Yeah, I'm not too sure about budgets, so.
that's okay. So this one, you didn't have the COLA though, right? Is that what it,
Yeah, budget 2, there was no COLA in it.
okay, so.
But the number's wrong, she said.
Well, yeah, because it was 30,101.
Should I give that to him?
You probably can see, basically, number 1 and number 2 are the,
Yeah, so
Same.
the
I
two,
guess
the
there
two
was
and a
a
half would
mistake.
be the budget 2, correct?
yeah,
The
But-
25.
She,
yes.
yeah.
So technically,
She just amended it. She was supposed to tweak it today?
yeah, because I
Yeah.
got it today, and then the changes, they were, I was like, oh, where did we get these numbers? So we had to fix the
Oh, okay.
numbers, and unfortunately, I've been in meetings all day, so,
Is that the wrong document?
This is for the
budget 1,
zoning
not
board.
budget 2.
So, but why the large jump from?
So you can tell about the 24 hours. 'cause that's
Yeah,
what-
so I guess we're gonna, I don't know if it's called a lateral, so for town clerk, I'm only gonna do 16 hours, and I'm gonna put the difference on to help this board.
Okay.
So she will be deducted, I used to do 22 for her, but I'm only gonna do the 16. And then the rest of those hours, I'm gonna help the planning and conservation and zoning.
So just wanna make sure I understand this, the zoning board of appeals, this line will increase, but there'll be a deduction on the town clerk?
Right.
Okay.
That's right, and that's why you'll
I
see
don't
the
know how you note
percentage.
that on there, but Yeah.
Um,
You need that?
No, I just,
Okay.
I'm just gonna put some arrows.
Yeah, that's fine.
I crossed all line.
And I'm gonna write in my cryptic
Okay.
language over here.
And this is nothing. What is this, Mary Ann, that you had on there?
I don't know what I put that in for. Oh, that was supposed to be the COLA.
Oh,
I think that's
okay.
what it came out to, so I was just showing you that
Alright,
that's
so
what the
that's-
COLA
yeah, so
is.
that's wrong.
I didn't wanna keep any,
Yeah.
Now, does this number here, the 3101, does that include the COLA there?
It does include.
on page one,
Yes.
Page
right?
one.
But not the budget two, because we're not supposed to do the,
So budget.
oh, no.
Oh, you got me confused.
I'm getting confused. She was trying to help me with that.
Yeah, well, I think
David,
the ask
you will?
was budget one was, level funded. Budget two was the needs request, right? Like,
Okay.
so, your Christmas wish list type of thing. But you took it a little bit further. You deducted budget two, which
Yeah, this
I
is
think is
just-
great.
this is 20
So, I mean,
and this is
you
24
can
hours.
decide and figure out,
Doing it right now.
Oh, okay.
All right. Any more questions for zoning board of appeals?
Okay, so the next one.
Plugging right along today.
So, is that okay for now?
I'm good. Does anybody else have any? Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
fine. We might just have a question when,
Yeah.
the full budget is put
Yep.
into place and we can see it against the town clerk and all of that.
Yep.
But I understand it. Does everyone else understand it?
We'll go over it again too.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I was just wondering, is there any way I can do recreation in Southbury Commons, so I don't have to come back next week?
It's not on the agenda,
Oh,
Yeah.
So you can't.
so.
so you want me to come back next week? Okay, okay.
Um,
It's, I mean, it's
Is it-
fine. It's fine, I was just trying to.
No, I understand what you're saying. Actually, I should give it to Dan. It's pretty much level funded. it looks
It's
like,
level
so-
funded, there's nothing increased at all, but if you need me to come back, I will.
I suppose we could ask questions, document them, and then
Yeah.
reread them, right? If they were to come up, if there are
I
any
mean, if you want me
questions.
to, I will come in.
So it's we'll have to review it again when it's on the agenda.
Okay.
But if it's level funded and there's no questions from the committee, I wouldn't see a need to come back, yeah.
Okay, I'll check with Tammy next
Yeah,
week.
just double
I-
check.
I'll come in
You wanna
before
read it?
planning board if I need
I'm just
to.
gonna
If you have
pass it
any-
around.
If you have any questions, just send it to
Yeah.
me and then I'll.
And these are some of
Mary
the
Ann.
things that recreation pays for. If you
Okay.
wanted to know what some of the,
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put
We can
this,
save that for next week.
we'll put
Yeah.
this in. And, if there are any questions, I think, well, you know how to reach you.
yeah. Unfortunately.
So at the next meeting, we'll have copies of this?
Yes,
Yeah, when,
yes. And
is
if you
it
have any
next meeting,
questions-
this
Yeah.
one? Okay.
And if you have any questions, just send them to me and I'll get them from Mary Ann for you.
Dave, what was that? What was your-
This was the Recreation Commission in South Barre Common.
The other two that are on there, I'm not sure, I don't do those, so.
I think the only question though is the Youth Commission, has that been dissolved?
I think so.
Yes.
I believe we
We're gonna
stopped
be yes.
funding that.
We did.
Okay, so probably shouldn't be on there, but that's the only form I
Yeah,
had.
that's the only thing I would make.
That's
Oh, okay. It's the only form I had.
So,
Do
Yeah.
you want to take this?
Yeah.
that
so
you
we'll
can-
document that and we'll go
Okay.
over that.
Thank you. I'll
Next
just
meeting
bring
as
it. I'll
well.
make sure it's in.
All right.
All right.
All set? Thank you very much. Going up to conservation now?
Excellent, well, enjoy, thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Matt.
We're moving on to Historical Commission, and we have Miss Lucy Allen. Good evening. How's everything going over at the commission?
Well, last year was a very, the calendar year, 2024, was a very, very busy year for anybody involved in history in Barre. So I can't really delineate historical commission versus historical society. And working with the 250th anniversary committee, we were all just so absorbed in everything that went on historically. It just all flowed well together. I did not realize I needed to bring copies.
Oh, no, I already.
Oh, no, we have a copy.
Yeah,
We
no, no.
have a copy, so it looks like
Okay.
your,
Just level funding.
your level funding.
Yes.
With the $1,200 from this year, last year.
Yes.
Now, I know when you presented last year, you talked about, you know, the need for signage or the, were you able to use any of those funds? for-
We are planning to use them on the, entering the Barre Historic District, Common District, on the National Register. We have not gotten, I've been called into Lyman sign. I know there's been some delay in sign making lately. I don't know, like with the town sign. So I don't know what the holdup is, but we do hope to have them, have the signs done before June 30th. We're hoping for 2, possibly 3 signs for that. That would come out of FY '25. And then FY '26, also mainly dedicated to signage information in whatever capacity. And I would say one reason things have been going very well, I would say for the Historical Commission and our historical community in general, is that the big issue we worked on for 3 years, which was regaining our access to the Ware River watershed and our historical sites there, is working out very well. We've been working on developing a good relationship with DCR and the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee, and that affects the Historical Commission, the Cemetery Commission, and probably other parties as well, because of the historical sites that we have within the Ware River watershed. And we have, I've done training sessions with their rangers and their educators. I did a program for DCR just 2 weeks ago on Prince Walker and his life. And probably the other biggest accomplishment this year related to that is that we have put in an application to the state Massachusetts Historical Commission for the National Register for Prince Walker Burial Ground. It's, in the old days, the inventory forms that were created for the historical assets within town were done by volunteers, and some of them were done very well, and some Barres were done very well back in the 1970s. Other towns, they weren't done very well. You can see a big difference if you look from town to town. We have almost 300 assets on this state inventory. But because some weren't done well, they require, if anything happens to any one of those assets, the inventory has to be done over again. And they prefer it be done by a consultant. And that's why when you talk about a budget for the Barre Historical Commission, if we want to do anything with any of our historical assets, they want us to use a consultant with a minimum price of $15,000. So I have worked with them. I've done a lot of work with them, and they have agreed that in many areas I'm eligible to do the inventory myself, which will save us those consulting dollars. And they agreed that I could do it for anything like with stones and monuments and landscapes, not buildings. I'm not an architect, so I can't do a building, and I don't want to do a building. So I could do the historical aspect of the building, but not the architecture. So I spent a lot of the year really pulling out everything I could on the burial ground and the life of Prince Walker and our Black history, which we're really developing in town. As also we've done with Quock Walker and our Footsteps to Freedom theme. So I submitted the inventory by their deadline of June 30th, and the Massachusetts Historical Commission agreed that it's worthy of submitting to the National Park Service for their consideration for the National Register. They also submitted two places in their list of nominees for a grant from the National Park Service for their underrepresented communities, Prince Walker Burial Ground and the Ashfield House in Sheffield, which is where Elizabeth Freeman lived, who was the other former slave along with Quock Walker, who was very instrumental in getting slavery terminated in Massachusetts. That funding was announced January 15th, It is federal funding, and I do not know if that will be coming in. So that is a question mark. I don't know how that will impact. I have not heard that it's not coming in, but I think there's a lot of question marks out there. That will be a process at least a year. There may be expenses related to that will be coming out of our budget, but I just don't, for next year, that I just can't anticipate how much they would be and exactly what for. So far, I've absorbed everything personally, just from my own computer. We also are still working on an appropriate way to honor Clock Walker. And I know we've had some discussions on the former sign that stood on the common that was knocked down and badly damaged. And I know we've had a lot of expressions that maybe we should just patch that up and put it back, but it was never a sign that I feel was worthy of him or his history. And it is, those signs, the maker is gone out of business, and we have about 5 others that are in poor condition. So we have to figure out how to either patch them back up. One is right across the street, over across the street for Elm Hill School, those iron signs.
The cast iron signs.
And the branches rub against it, and you can't read them. So we need to figure out some way to at least get them so you can read them. So I have had an idea on the Clock Walker, which I've discussed briefly with at least one member of the cemetery commission, is to use Riverside Cemetery. And there's a program called the Witness Stones Project, which is, they have like a stone with a tablet on it that honors formerly enslaved people near where they lived or whatever. I don't think we can put it up at the Caldwell House, but that's very close. It's basically within sight of where he would have grown up and lived. And we could do that with other formerly enslaved people in Barre. I don't know the cost of that, but that might be more expensive, but it's a program that's in existence that we might be able to get into, and it's run out of Deerfield, a historic Deerfield right now. So we're working on that. We also have an issue with, I think, some of our historic parks, like Rocking Stone Park and the Rice Park on Mechanic Street, both of which were given to the town with the condition that they remain parkland and be used as parkland. Rocking Stone Park, in a trip I went there a few months ago, you wouldn't even know it's there, you can't see it. And the rock continues to have engravings and carvings on it. There is I'm trying to think of the right word, petroglyph, it's a stone carving on it, that some people think is a possible Native American carving. If so, we have to do some work to determine if that truly is a Native American carving, and we have to take some more actions to protect it. Right now, there used to be a Rocking Stone Park Commission. I do not believe there is one anymore. There's nobody that I know to turn to say, we need to do something with this park. The same with the John Rice Park. And so I'm hopeful that perhaps with some of our historic open spaces and parks, we can sort of look at a way of managing them so that these questions about how to maintain, get signage there. I don't think the sign should have to come out of the Historical Commission budget, and yet what the Massachusetts Historical Commission advised is clean that place up, get signs there advising people what they should and shouldn't do and all that. But I don't know who to turn to preserve this work, because I don't know who's in charge of the parks now.
But that wouldn't be the same Parks Commission that was just
Possibly.
possibly.
Mary Ann, I don't think is on that.
Yeah.
She's on the
that's
Southbury
North
Park
Bay Park.
specific one.
Yeah.
So
But
that's it,
there's
we've
a
got.
Parks and Recs Commission, right, that has a small amount of money, that some of it goes.
I'd have to
like
check into that.
baseball team
Ye-
stuff.
Well, yeah, that's the budget they're gonna
I
present
think that's
next
normally
meeting.
what they
Okay.
do, but the
Yeah.
purview may be bigger, but they didn't have the budget. or
Yeah.
I looked at
So
their
then there
budget
you would
at
be-
one point, and it's looked like all they did was recreation.
Have you, I mean, I would think, like, because those, any commissions that may have been absolved, if I'm not mistaken, would have been appointed by the select board around the parks, that sound like.
There were, I read newspaper articles where that was a gift partly of Joseph Higgins, and I think at one point his descendants asked if the commission could be reactivated, they'd be happy to serve on it, and this was years ago, went to the select board, I couldn't find the answer. So, I'm not sure that it's effective to have a commission for every park. You have to have 3 people minimum.
Yeah.
And I think it would be much more effective to have an overseeing body that looked at parklands and consistent signage and rules and was able to look at, I know that's slightly out of the historical commission's purview, but that site is extremely historic. And it is very close to, the state will not tell me where Native American archaeological sites have been found, unless, for example, if you wanted to dig there to build a building, they'd tell you. But they won't tell you. But they have hinted that this must be preserved carefully and cared for.
What's it look like? What's the hieroglyph?
Which park is that?
Look,
Rocking Stone Park. I'll see if I can pull one up on, it, to me to my eye, does not look like it is old enough to be, you mean that petroglyph?
yeah, is it like,
The answer the state gave me, I sent it to them, is we can't be the judges. You need to go to the Native Americans who are indigenous to your area and ask them to identify if it could have been done by their tribe. Because we can't be the judge. So that is, right, I don't also feel that that's, is
or it
that-
could be,
is-
it could be the local farm boys.
It has been there, well, it's been there for probably 100 years anyway. The problem is when Professor Agassiz started writing about it in the 1830s, they didn't have cameras. And there are drawings that don't depict it, but he was interested in the geological formation, not in Native American culture or archaeology. So he just might not have been interested.
What was his
So
name?
he documented?
What was his
sorry.
name?
Professor Agassiz, Agassiz, I guess. I'm just trying to think of how I can,
But in his writings, he documented it from that long ago?
yes.
Oh, wow.
This was, Rocking Stone, before it was a park, was a mecca for tourists from New England. I mean, really, this was written in all the newspapers and magazines. It was a trip you would take in the summer to go see it.
Okay, what year was that?
Well, the earliest I found is the 1830s,
Okay.
but obviously it's been there for
Awesome buggy time, okay.
thousands of years. So the big thing was that
They didn't have the
he
internet
claimed it
No
came,
internet.
it's not from this area, it came down from Alaska. So this is what, it's a glacial erratic that, or
Right.
some such thing,
Rolled in.
yeah.
Alaska seems kind of far
I don't know
west.
how that happened, but, and I'm not a geologist, so.
Where did he, where was he professing?
You know, I'm gonna have to, look that up for you, and that's the wrong face of it.
I mean, I do think you bring up some valid points here in terms of, you know, lands that the town needs to do a better job of taking
Yeah.
responsibility for and understanding the expenses that would be related to
And
them.
I'm trying to only do the historic nature.
Yeah.
And it's a sizable piece of land, it's 25 or 6 acres. And it's completely, except for the rock, there used to be, the second bandstand was moved up there when the third bandstand was built, and it was made into a pavilion, and it disappeared.
What, up at Rocking Stone?
Yes.
Really?
It was all open, you could see all over, now it's so grown in, when you drive down Rocking Stone Park
Mhm.
Road, you can't even see where the park is. There's no sign saying, I mean.
Well, you
have-
can see the rock.
If it's not summer, you can't see it in the summer, it's so overgrown with
Yeah,
vegetation.
yeah.
So, I'm trying to focus on the things that are historical assets, because that's one of our historical assets
It
that's,
is.
that's
I would
threatened.
say-
I mean,
I would say it
it's in
is.
our inventory of
Yep.
historic assets. So I think we need to look at some of those things. And when you ask what, $1,200 doesn't go far when you're talking
No.
about consultants and, there are, I'm sure, Nipmuc tribal members that would be happy to look at that image. I'll probably have to send one out to you. I can't, it almost looks like a Polynesian mask. But that, as I say, my opinion doesn't count, so.
Yeah, something like that, because it wouldn't be a recurring cost, would almost be something to present to the select board, finance committee as an article, right, to get a capital expenditure
Yeah,
request from the town,
yeah.
to, kind of do like an overhaul.
Yeah.
And then, in terms, I mean, obviously, it's not the best time, this discussion has to start somewhere, right? It's not the best time to be like, oh, let's throw that into the annual budget. But it is a discussion, the discussion has to start at some point.
Another discussion might be, because it is in an area with a lot of trustees of reservations land, if it did not violate the terms of any deed, if they might take over in some way the care of it, but still call it Rocking Stone Park, Town of Barre, like they have their reservations at Swift River and other places. And I'm not recommending that, but I would suggest looking at it as an option, because they would have many more resources than we do to know how to preserve that, because they.
Yeah, and the
do it all over
preservation.
All over the state.
And it's town-owned property.
It is town, it was a gift to the town, and I don't know if it would violate the terms of the deeds.
So, like, in an instance like a town-owned park, would you know the same, like, would that fall under the purview, like, the DPW to maintain, like, overgrowth and stuff like that, or?
Well, I know,
Barring that they're overwhelmed, that's another conversation, but, like, they're fully staffed, they're running tip-top shape, like, is that, like, part of their?
I think it's something we could look into. I know if it's determined to be just a park, then,
Yeah.
and no one's looking
But it's
after it
not
right
used
now.
as a
no
park
one-
at all. I mean, it's
And
not,
it's under
as far
us.
as I know, it's only used probably for hangouts by teenagers who, if you look at or cans and stuff, and the graffiti that's being put on it, which is not going to stop. But I think that the concern is, if this is, it is an archaeological wonder, a geological wonder, and we have an archaeological thing that might be important there. So I think it's important to check those things out and see what we can do.
Yeah, I can look into that.
Yeah, and we also have,
You
with
think if a
Prince-
volunteer went up there with a chainsaw, he'd get in trouble?
I don't know. We have a similar problem with Prince Walker Cemetery, which is under the Cemetery Commission. But as you probably know, that's landlocked by DCR, and you can't get any vehicles or equipment. So we're working with DCR and the Cemetery Commission. So we have some very remote locations that are very difficult to maintain, because they're so remote, you can't, somebody
Well,
could
that
go
one
in
you
there.
can drive up to.
You can
Yeah,
drive
You
up
can
to
drive
it.
up to it.
Right.
Yeah, the summer, that's in the watershed, right, the Ware River
The Prince,
watershed?
the Prince Walker Barre
Yeah, yeah.
is, and we're working on some plans for that. So,
Where's the Lucy, sorry,
Yeah.
where's that John Rice Park?
that's right on Mechanic Street.
Really?
That's like, it's
Oh,
like
yeah,
a basketball court, it's like
that's
a
That's the
little.
basketball
Oh,
court.
That's
Yeah.
right. Maybe you and I
Right,
can get
right.
together and you
We
can
can.
tell me
Yeah.
all the
Yes,
parks around the
that was
area.
a gift of John W. Rice, and that has a condition, if the town does not use it as a park, it goes to his heirs. Now, he was a boot manufacturer in Barre. The center school used to be there, where some of us went to middle school, and that was actually used as the boys' playground. But when the school burned, it's really needs a lot of help. And it's been my hope at some point, we might be able to put some sort of a pavilion there with historical information about places people could go in Barre, like, with those little Venmo, what do you call them, those little square codes you can scan.
Oh, yeah, the QR
Codes.
codes.
QR, not Venmo, no, that's something
Yeah.
else. QR codes where you could say, well, if you wanna go on this historic route and look at these sites, you know, it's so that people who come to Barre with, like with a bike rack, you know, you could have, you know, bike suggestions for bike tours, that it could be used in that way because it's close to the common. And it's getting so that the common's pretty crammed with stuff. If we could sort of have some of it, historical information down there in that park, I don't know, it might, and direct people down there. I don't know, it's just
Yeah.
one idea.
CMRPC actually just did a project.
Yes,
Was it-
they were doing a
It wasn't
project.
Hardwick, was it? But they did like a whole GIS mapping of all the sites to visit within their town.
Yeah.
So that it set it up now, so that again, that
Yeah.
QR code could then bring you to that website, give you
Yeah.
all of that
Oh, yeah.
info. So they worked with one of the local towns, I
Yeah.
forget which one, to,
Yeah,
and just the presentation alone of what it was, is
Yes.
like, that's how today's world is finding your
Right.
local
yes.
things.
I've also done an inventory of all of our historical signs and markers that you probably don't, there's like 150 or 100 of them. Like all the Veterans Memorial markers, the ones for the lost villages and the scenic byways and all that. So I've done an inventory of those, their locations, and I'm gonna have a picture and have that online too, so that people can have that. But I think that the reserving FY '26, I would think waiting hopefully to find out if we need to pay any money for the full application for Prince Walker Burial Ground, that really needs protection and help. If it's on the National Register, we'll be more eligible for other funding, at least in the old world we would be. I don't know if that's going to change, but I think it's a step we should take, so.
And like, what would those costs be within your budget here to apply for that? Is there a cost
Would you,
associated?
the state will apply, do the actual application, that's what they got the grant money for, $29,500 for 2 applications. Right. So, as I say, they want everything done by consultants, so,
But that's the one they'll let you do.
well, mine was the research and the documentation of why it has historic merit. Now they have to turn that into what the National Park Service wants to put on the National Register. It's a much more vigorous and thorough process than it was in the old days when you just kind of typed something out and they went, yeah, that looks good. But I think my stack was like this just for the footnotes for everything for it. So that's what they're looking for now.
Excellent. And for the FY '26 request, so that you're just staying level funded
Yeah.
for those general costs and expenses?
Yeah, yes.
You're good with that?
I just don't have any idea of what anything special would cost.
Yeah, I think you almost need to have like a study done.
Yes.
And
And that will cost money.
that will cost money. And I don't know, like, that could be something like a annual town meeting, like, if you get an idea,
Yeah.
like we did, or what did we do recently? We did the feasibility study for the fire station, a couple of those, like
Yeah.
I'm not certain what that would cost the town up front, but I think that's where kind of you have to want to start, is like, what would it cost to do that study?
Yeah, yeah.
And, the finance committee could offer a recommendation, but that really should go, my suggestion, to the select board first,
Yeah.
right, as like the first step.
Yeah.
Because that would fall under their like jurisdiction with parks and stuff like that.
And like we've talked with the planning board and the select board about local historic district, and also a little bit about the Community Protection and Preservation Act. And the local historic district, if we did that bylaw, that would be, my one concern is, we have barely able to get a Barre Historical Commission you need another separate commission to do that. It's a lot of work, because every time a building permit is pulled in a local historic district, it has to go to the planning, building department for review to see if it meets. You have to develop all of your specifications for what you're allowing in that district. That's something that hinges on the historical commission, but there's no way I feel that our people could take, like in Peter Sam, they do both, there's no way. I mean, and so it's just something that would be a lot of work. I think the Community Preservation Act would be something that would bring a different benefit, a financial benefit to the town that I would go for first. But that's just my opinion.
I don't disagree with you
Yeah.
with that. It may be, something like that may be a challenge in the next 2 fiscal years with understanding the inflationary factors to our regular operating budget
Right.
and how that may
Right.
affect the
Right.
tax rate. You know, so
Yeah.
that's something we're gonna be battling, you know, these next couple months here, trying to present a
Right.
balanced budget that's within the
Yeah.
levy limit of the town.
Yeah.
We, you know, had challenges in the last budget cycle, had to make reductions, right? And this budget cycle is not gonna be any easier.
I'm sure.
So the town may be faced with some difficult
Mhm.
decisions
Yeah.
that they have to decide, you know, to increase their funding,
Yeah.
which means increase tax
Yeah.
rates, right? Or we have to adjust service levels. So time will tell. You know, luckily, I'm only one voice in that whole aspect, right?
So, I don't know, do you have any other?
No, I always appreciate your full synopsis
Very
and
thorough. information
related to the history of the town. It's certainly intriguing, so.
Well, it is intriguing, and enjoy interpreting it and dispensing it.
Lucy-
Dispensing history, is that a
Lucy,
word you can
I may
use?
send you a note asking for,
Copy that.
maybe you could find that picture?
I will,
I'll
yes.
send you a note.
I know I have it on my computer, it's not on my, yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Is
Thank
this-
Thank you very
much.
You can take
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Lucy.
Thank you. Have a great day. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, thank you, sir. Have a great night.
Bye, Matt.
Have a nice-
You too.
Right.
Thank you.
We have no old business to discuss today, so I think we're ready for adjournment unless anyone else has anything else.
Could I have, Tammy, that was really good, good information you got from Jesse sent.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
That was really
Sorry,
helpful.
Levy.
Oh, good, I'm
That's a-
glad, because I
That
know
really
you asked
helps
that.
get us all on the same page.
That's what I was
It's
hoping.
important. It was very nice
Good.
that you sent that. It got me thinking though, when I was reading it. And, because in the past, and I don't know if you guys remember, we used to do these revenue sheets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
These things were really good. And I thought, you know, we did these things, yeah, send that down to Tammy.
Yeah.
I don't know
Thank you.
if, we didn't, that one goes up to the fiscal year '23,
Mhm.
and, as an estimate. And
Yes.
then, I couldn't find the ones for, I don't know who's responsible for this. Was this us?
We have one in the report. You do have one in
Yeah.
the FinCom report that we had for FY
We,
'24.
Okay.
we do have one for 2024 and 2025?
Yeah,
In the booklet?
yes, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the booklet would be
Good.
from 24,
I thought this was great, too.
right?
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Jesse's thing here made me think, because this number, Jesse's final number goes up here, right?
Yes,
Yep.
In that top column.
yeah.
So somewhere along the line, we stopped, I don't know if we did this.
And we need to have this.
Last year.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
we need to have this in advance of.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
You
We're all on,
understand
we're on the
that, right?
same page, yes.
All right, that's the key.
We're on it, yes,
All
yes.
right, thank you.
And anything you guys want me to ask or get
So what
from
book
you,
was
let
the
me
one
know.
for 24 and 25?
It should be in the beginning of the booklet.
Of the book we
For
had out at
the-
the town meeting?
Town
Yeah.
meeting, yeah, the blue
Yeah.
book.
Okay. Right.
Yep.
Not the big book. I was thinking the big.
It was
big
my
book.
first one doing it, not gonna lie, so, but it was interesting,
No, that's important.
very important.
And then, like, as we get these budgets in, are you putting those on a main sheet?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Leanne was already, I was just talking to her
Yeah.
about it.
Okay. Yeah, if like, prior to each meeting with the packet, if you could send an update
Absolutely.
with that, that would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Excel preferred, but if, does anyone not use Excel and need PDF?
No?
Well, Excel is what I was gonna give you.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I was just asking you this, I was gonna do one budget, like one and budget two. So we kinda have like, we can see like, what do we really want, like a wish list, and then like what we can maybe, hopefully,
We could just make a call.
work off of. Yeah. You guys can look it through, I know it's gonna be kinda
Yeah.
challenging, but even for me, it's gonna be a
Pick
little
a, pick
challenging.
a
so-
column.
Yeah.
I'm running some analysis too, like over the last 5 years, I'm not done with it. But just to show the trends in some of the individual accounts and where they may have increased or decreased. I just started it this past week, but I think, you know, a couple more weeks I might have it close to be able to provide to everyone in the FinCom. Just to really understand, like, over that period of time, like, you know,
Each
question,
department will
yeah.
Go to the DPW.
Yeah, question I think we, you know, I'm sure everyone here, but like, I get asked, you know, is like, where is the money going?
Where's the money?
You know, and it's on paper, it is a lot of money, right? But when you break it down to the granular level, it's being accounted for on every aspect, right? It's,
I think it's also, so I went to regional dispatch today, I had to go to their meeting and stuff, and they're like at 11.2%. I told you, remember, I told you it went up, it like doubled, and I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna try to bring it down to see what they can do, but even like our health insurance, that's going up, I mean, that's, I wanna say our health insurance is like 12 to 14%, and then the Worcester Regional Retirement, that's even higher than that, so everything with like inflation, you'll see that that's, I think you'll see, I'm hoping, I'm curious to see your report, because I think we're gonna see a big inflation
oh
on
yeah.
all that stuff. And I can tell you, even like tonight, a lot, everyone was really level funded. I mean, like you said, I think it's accounted for everything that they've discussed and
Yeah.
the needs of just in general the town, so.
It's gonna, like, this is gonna be the town's challenging year.
Yeah.
Other towns in the area have already gone through this, or they're going through it right now, where they have to put the decision in the hands of the townspeople and the voters and say, hey, you know.
We were talking about that
it's-
again. I was with about 5 other town administrators, 4 and myself, and 4 of us are all looking at possibly maybe a 2.5, and only one was not. You know, so they were all talking about it, either cutting budgets, 2.5, you know, so it's definitely out there, it's around the area.
Yeah,
We're not the only ones.
And I mean, I think the town did very well to make it this far before it was even part of the conversation, right? Like cutting budgets, finding funding as needed, getting a little creative with the budgets, but all signs are pointing to it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be coming to the crossroads this year because of those things. You know, we increasing labor, increasing utilities. It's more than the levy limit can support. You know, those costs, you know, I know, you go to the supermarket, you're paying 30% more for the same groceries you bought 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's,
Look at eggs.
yeah. Eggs.
I'm just saying, I see that all the time on the news, right? $8 a dozen.
I think a great discussion, you know, we should keep our minds open, and as we move forward, you know, trying to have more open discussions around this, because I think it's, you know, it's important for the folks that pay attention.
Yeah, to build it up, to understand
Yeah.
the tight situation.
So I don't want to reiterate on this thing though,
Yeah.
but you get this information comes late in the process.
Oh, yeah.
It all comes really
Well,
late.
that's true.
It does, and
So you-
even the
a lot of
top
it.
part,
The
with,
bottom
when you
line.
read Jesse's thing, I'm sorry, my voice is cracking, so excuse me. Even the top part, he doesn't really have the full picture until November.
Yeah.
And it's a little too late by then, right? So I think this year, we're gonna have to be very, very, I mean, Dan, tell me if I'm wrong, but we're gonna be very, very conservative on our local receipts. You know what I mean? Because I think, I tried to be statistic, and I was doing the 200. I even talked with DOR about that, and I think we're gonna have to probably go with what we have, maybe we had this year,
Yeah.
just so we know we'll where our budget will be.
I was
Yeah.
hoping the accountant would be here today, because when I was going through my folders, I found this one coming from the accountant that certifies the enterprise fund for sewer and water,
Yeah,
and it, for certifying the free cash.
mm-hmm.
So is that the number that's in here for water and sewer?
Let me look
On
for
the
you.
bottom. There's an indirect cost for water and sewer.
Yeah, so the
Does that
indirect,
number have to be certified by
no,
the state?
the indirect cost for water and sewer on the bottom, that's for like, the health insurance is for water and sewer. It's the administrative side for the water and sewer, that's not their retained earnings. Retained earnings are not even on here. You'll see the retained earnings when DOR goes ahead and certifies it.
That's the
So,
retain, and then do we move money from those accounts?
yep, so when you go ahead and you go to the annual town meeting, you know how they have like the, water enterprise and you'll see it broken out? All
Yeah.
that's broken out. You'll see the indirect costs for water and sewer broken out. You'll see the salary line item, you'll see the expenses, and that's all broken out. And when you look at it, I can't remember like on which side, like, they have to both equal the bottom, you know, for sewer and water. Retained earnings is kind of like, I call it like their free cash, right? So they would use it for like pipes or fixing their water.
So you don't use it, we can't use that to offset our budget?
We cannot use that to offset our
separate.
budget because they're enterprise funds.
Yeah, what you could do, and this was discussed with Greg Bellaconis when he was the interim, and he said that our numbers are low is our, was it our indirect expense?
That's right, so that has to come up, so he's 100% correct.
So that's like shared services, right? So
Mhm.
they utilize like Tammy's office, they utilize, you know, the treasurer, they utilize other departments.
Yes, that's the administrative side.
And so those administrative costs are not properly brought into their expenditures.
So those should be really at a higher expense. And that's where that comes into play.
But that all gets certified later in the process.
So we are right
also.
now, so once the accountant, and we did already do it, she has closed her books, everything's been submitted. So now we're just waiting to hear back from DOR. Once Department of Revenue sends it back, we'll have the free cash, we'll have our retained earnings for water, retained earnings for sewer. So technically, right now, we don't have any you know, it's like, what are our retained earnings, water, sewer? What is our free cash? Which we didn't have free cash last year anyways. But if you go ahead and you ask right now, I'm gonna tell you we don't have anything, right? Because it basically gets sent back, it gets recertified, and then, so we couldn't use any of it. So once it comes from DOR and they certify their retained earnings and our free cash, then we can go ahead and that's where it gets voted on at the annual town meeting. Does that help?
I mean, the town still has a fairly solid stabilization fund. We have the capital stabilization fund. It's just, it's the current budget, you know? You don't wanna use those funds to pay for the service we're using on an annual basis, right?
When you get free cash, just for an example, DOR likes you to send back, I say send back, I can't, it's like, it's actually like in the cloud, right? Like, 3 to 5%, it's like a savings, you know, so say you get $300,000 in free cash, 3 to 5% of that money should kind of go back, shouldn't even touch that, because that's kind of like saving for that rainy day for us, so we're not always spending all of our free cash, and then you want to always make sure with your free cash, you're doing the proper thing. You don't want to use it to offset your budget. That's not going to help us in the long haul. You don't want to use it to offset your taxes. I'm not saying you can't do it. You by all means can, but that's just not best practice. You want to use it to save for capital stabilization, for regular stabilization, and when you put money into OPEB, it kind of helps your bond rating. So that's what you want to do to go ahead and, you know, see the further picture of things for our town to grow. We want our town to grow, and that's important. So hopefully, I'm hoping we get some free cash so we can start to not
Yeah.
use it for our budget or anything. I'm hoping we use it the right way.
Well, that's how the town started this capital stabilization, because that's a relatively new, we started that like, what, 21 maybe, 22? And preparing for things like ambulances, cruisers,
And you can even
front-end
do that.
loaders,
You can
yeah.
even call it like, I'll say engine number 4 stabilization, you know, and then that would be obviously for like fire truck or
Yeah.
whatever. And you put in like $20,000 every year, so you know what? Now when it comes down 5 years from now, we're gonna have that funding. We won't have to go ahead and borrow a whole bunch of money to offset ourselves and get us into this bind, because we need to really look at capital planning and seeing what do our departments actually need, so we can continue to
Yeah.
move forward with that. So important to have a,
And even that, you were part of that
Forecast.
committee, right, the capital planning, that's kind of.
Yeah.
That's kind of, has that
Oh,
dissolved?
we had like 2 meetings and that was it.
No.
okay, so that's something that
Many
really needs
moves
to
ago,
start
right?
up again.
Yeah.
That should be started up again.
No.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, so I think that's probably like on the wish list, like
You
that
know,
the
there
town
was
needs
no
to figure
money,
out.
so.
Yeah.
it kinda died
Well,
out.
that's
But
why
when
you
you get
plan.
free-
That's why you plan.
That's why you plan.
Even if you
That's why
get
you have a 5-year, you
Even
know.
if you get 20,000 in free cash, you should still take it, they always say you get a paycheck, you put 20% here, 10% here, 20% there, kind of the same thing. No matter whatever you get, kind of think about what you want to do with it, to do it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because there are things that the town can't ignore, right? Or it's gonna impact as well. Like, you ignore like equipment at the DPW, right? It's gonna it'll cost the town more money in the long run.
Yes.
If you don't nip it in the bud to, maintain or repair up front. Say that correlates like with the police department's plan of, phasing out a vehicle every 6 years. And if you keep that car 8, 10 years, guess what? Like now you're paying more repair costs than,
Yep.
The opportunity costs. The curve shifts. All right, well,
What do you think?
I could talk about this.
Wrap it up.
We can go.
Oh.
Did you already adjourn?
We didn't adjourn, we're waiting for a
All right.
motion. There we go.
I was thinking already, Dan, I
We have
don't
a
know.
motion to adjourn.
Second, I
A motion and a
second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this was really good. I enjoyed